Jnanakosha, Puranas.
सर्गच्च प्रतिसर्गच्च वंशो मन्वन्तराणि च वंशानुचरितं चैव पुराणं पञ्चलक्षणम्.
Bhagavat Purana. The sages curse Yaduvanshis. Shukadev said, O Parikshit, as the time passed, Yaduvanshis grew stronger and more influential. Now no longer did they like the welcoming and treating of the great sages like Kanu, Dharva, Dhurvasa, Maitreya, Dhananjaya. By the Lord Krishna knew about their disliking, but secretly he was pleased by this change in Yaduvanshi's behavior, for he knew that by disregarding the saints and the scriptures they would meet their end sooner. Once the Yaduvanshis clothed Jambavati's son Samba in a woman's attire and showing him to the sages asked mockingly, Maharaj, this is our sister-in-law. She is an expecting mother. She feels shy to ask, but tell us what will be born to her. Through their unfailing vision, the sages knew the reality and said, Fools, a pestle shall be born to her, and that pestle shall exterminate the entire Yaduvansh. Now all the Yaduvanshis were perplexed by sages' prediction and approached their king Ugrasena. But even the king was helpless now because he could not change the words the pious sages. In due course a pestle was born to Samb. Frightened of an imminent fate, Yaduvanshis crushed the pestle into a fine powder and threw it into the sea. Only a nail remained. That also was thrown into the sea, where a fish swallowed it. A fisher caught the fish and cut it open and found the nail. He gave it to a hunter. The hunter fixed the nail in the head of his arrow. On the other hand, the sea waves washed the powder of the pestle ashore, where it germinated and grew as luxuriant grasses. Later on, once all the Yaduvanshis assembled at the seashore for a picnic, where they drank wine and began to fight with one another under intoxication. Soon their quarrel grew so high that they pulled out the grasses which were growing there to use as the arms. With the grasses, the Yaduvanshis beat one another to death. Narada preaches Vasudeva about Bhagavat. Once Narada arrived in Dwaraka, Vasudeva prayed him and requested to provide him with pious company of Bhagavat Dharma. Narada said, O king, once upon a time 9 great sages arrived in the court of the king Janaka. King Janaka had put the same curiosity before them also. I will narrate the conversation that followed there between the sages and the king. First of all, the first Yogeshwar Kavi said, O King Janaka, dedication is the first duty, dharma, of a Vaishnava. He should devote everything, his actions, fruit of actions, and even himself at the feet of Lord. He ought to hear about Lord's virtues. Such a devotee shall be indifferent to the worldly affairs and shall laugh, dance, or sing occasionally and sanctified all the 3 worlds. The king then asked about the characteristics of the Lord's devotees. Another Yogeshwar Hari said, a true devotee of the Lord remains unaffected by feelings like hunger, thirst, life, death, labor, pain, fear, and desire. Such a devotee is the excellent kind of Bhagavat. Even the wealth of all the 3 worlds cannot shake the faith of such a devotee, because Lord Sri Hari himself stays in his heart. With what is illusion? A Yogeshwar Antariksh replied, King, an illusion is also God's play. Having a possessive feeling about mundane is illusion. Thinking in terms of I, me, mine, my, you, yours is also illusion. If one can have such an affection For God, as he has for worldly things, one can easily surmount the illusion. King Janaka then asked about the method of worshipping Lord. A Yogeshwar Karbhajan said, O king, the Lord had a fair complexion in Satya Yuga. People used to receive him through methods like meditation, reconciliation. In Treta Yuga, the Lord had reddish complexion and yajnas were the main means to achieve him. In Dwapar Yuga, the Lord had yellowish complexion and he could be pleased through worships. In the present Kali Yuga, Lord has dark complexion and one can receive him through means like recitation, narration and hearing of his name and praise. Thus Narada preached Vasudeva about Bhagavat Dharma. Now the heart and mind of Vasudeva were thoroughly clean and pure. Lord departs to his abode and destruction of Yaduvanshis. To remind the Lord about the moment of his departure, Brahma arrived in Dwarka accompanied by all the gods. He prayed to him, O Lord, you have completed your duty of what we had once requested you. Now you please return to your abode. Lord said, on the seventh day from now, Dwarka shall submerge in the sea and Yadavas shall fight among themselves to death. I too shall depart then. The arrow of a hunter shall be the cause of my departure. When Uddhava learnt that Lord was about to wind up his place, he approached him and said, I understand, O Lord, that this all is happening by your wish, but I cannot part for a moment from your feet. Hence take me also with you to your abode. Lord said, Uddhava, I will not go anywhere. My entire brilliance will be present in Srimad Bhagavat. You stay here preaching Bhagavat Dharma. Saying thus, Lord preached Uddhava about the Gita, Jnana, through the tale of Avadhut. Lord narrated thus Uddhava. Once our ancestor Yadu happened to see Lord Dattatreya in a forest. Lord was indulged in the supreme joy in the guise of Avadhut. Yadu asked him about the reasons for his whimsical state. Avadhut had said, O king, making the various animals, birds, insects as my teacher, I have learnt about spirituality from them. That is why I am free from mourning and attachment. Earth, air, sky, water, fire, the moon, the sun, pigeon, python, sea, grasshopper, humblebee, honey bee, elephant, extractor of honey, deer, fish, prostitutes, osprey, boy, girls, arrow maker, snake, spider, and wasps are all my teachers. I took refuge at these 24 teachers and learned from their behavior. I learned forgiveness from earth, purity from the sky, holiness and cleanliness from the water, innocence and renunciation from the fire, indifferentness from the air, to remain unaffected by circumstances from moon, abdication from the sun, incoherence from the pigeon, dependence upon fate and remained effortless from the python, to remain always happy and serious from the sea, to be under the control of senses, organs and hence meet total destruction from the grasshopper, acquiring of virtues from bumblebee, fault in cumulating from honeybee, to abstain sensuous talks from the deer, to eliminate greed from the fish, sorrow in hope and happiness in desperation from the prostitute, to feel happy in uncertainty from osprey, dispute among many from the girls, concentration from the arrow maker, to roam alone and detachment from a particular place from the snake, virtues of the Creator Lord from the spider, and I learned similarity from the wasp. In the guise of Avadhut, Lord Dattatreya says, O king, I learned wisdom and apathy from my body also, because life, and death again are inseparably intertwined with it. Hence, the net result of loving his body is nothing but sorrow. Thus, our own body also helps us to learn about metaphysical knowledge. Lord Krishna also explained Uddhava regarding futility of physical and heavenly luxuries. This human body is like a tree. on which two birds, Jivatma and Paramatma, have taken shelter. Two fruits, happiness and sorrow, appear on it. These fruits are eaten by Jivatma, while Paramatma stays as an indifferent onlooker. There are three kinds of Jiva: Baddha, bound; Bhakta, devotee; and Mukta, liberated. Baddha Jivas, bound souls, are those who indulge in sensual pleasures and those who dislike pious company. Mukta Jiva are those who are free from attachment and bindings. Bhaktas are those who meditate on me and dedicate their everything in my feet and have love for my virtues. My devotee is kind, free from flaws, tolerant, has feeling of fraternity for all and controls his desires. Bhikshu Gita. Lord said, Uddhava, in the world there is indeed a dearth of such tolerant people who can tolerate bitter remarks of evil ones. In this context, there is a tale of a greedy Brahmin who lived in Ujjain. That Brahmin had been badly tormented by the evil people after he had lost his wealth. But still the Brahmin did not lose his patience, and regarding his present state as a result of his previous birth deeds, he expressed his feelings thus: These people are not the cause of my miseries, neither the gods nor body, not even planets and time, can be blamed for my miseries. Scriptures and learned ones held the mind itself guilty of one's miseries. It is the mind that runs the cycle of the world and makes every kind of efforts. In the absence of mind, even the soul is rendered motionless. When one accepts the dictates of the mind and indulges in sensual pleasures, soul too comes to be bound with them. The ultimate outcome of all the spiritual efforts like celibacy, study of Vedas and obedience to pious actions is the concentration of mind. Concentration of mind and his abstention from sensual pleasures are the primary conditions for attainment of Parama Yoga. Thus Lord preached Uddhava about Jnana Gita. Uddhava too took Bhagavat, which is the form of the Lord, with honor and departed for Badrika ashram. Description of dynasties in Kali Yuga. Sukadev describes about the dynasties that would occur in Kali Yuga. Ripunjay or Purinjai would be the last king of Brihat dynasty. This dynasty would be succeeded by the kings of Nanda dynasty. Then a diplomatic Brahmin named Chanakya would exterminate this dynasty and enthrone Chandragupta Maurya. In Maurya dynasty, a great king would occur by the name of Ashokavarthana. After him, Yavanas would rule then for 640 years. Their rule would be succeeded by the governance of fair-complexioned foreigners who would rule for 160 years. Thereafter, there would be no king and no subjects because people from all the classes would come forward to rule. The ruler would be selected by the majority votes. There would be no anything like holiness. Cows would grow thin like nannies. People would not marry as per their caste. Greed, selfishness and sex would be the base of marriage life. In adverse conditions, spouses would desert each other. There would be nothing like duty, responsibility and conduct. Hair would be the main item of adornment for the woman. People would not have the knowledge of religious scriptures in Kali Yuga. Talkativeness would be identified with knowledge. Only those would be regarded as clever who could pick others' pockets. Children would not regard or pay due respect to their parents. Children would maintain relations with parents till their marriage only, not after that. Boys would not touch the feet of their own parent, but would pay full respect to their father and mother-in-law. Brother-in-law would be dearer to them than their own brothers. Sukadev says, Parikshit, Kali Yuga is the mine of falls. but it has only one great virtue, that the people will acquire divine position only by reciting Lord's name. Recitation of Lord's name, regardless of intention and motivation, whether it is love, derision, laziness, or maliceness, would destroy one's sins. But, O Parikshit, the sinister people would do even the most difficult tasks in Kali Yuga, but they would not recite Lord's name. They would not have an interest in the Lord. Their interest would be more in sensuous things like sound, touch, beauty, scent. O Parikshit, the Paramagati that people could receive by 10,000 years of meditation in Satya Yuga, by performing yajna for 100 years in Treta Yuga, and by worshipping Lord's idol for 10 years in Dwapara Yuga, that supreme salvation is easily available for people in Kali Yuga simply by reciting Lord's name for one day and one night continuously. But still, in Kali Yuga, people would not have faith in Lord's name. It is their misfortune. Sukadeva says, O Parikshit, recitation of Sri Hari has occurred in Srimad Bhagavat Mahapurana. O king, this soul is eternal, so you abandon this animal-like feeling that you would die. You are not the body, you are the eternal form of joy. Imbibe your mind with the reflection of Paramatma and have a sight of him in the end. You are God yourself, then neither Tashak nor death would do any harm to you. Unify yourself in the Supreme Being by thoughts alike. I am Parabrahma. Thus Sukadeva assured Parikshit to be fearless. Final beatitude of Parikshit and Nagayagya of Janmejaya. Thus graced by Shukadev, King Parikshit faithfully worshipped Brahma Rishi and prayed to him with folded hands. Lord, you are an idol of kindness. You have bestowed your grace on me, narrating the plays of Lord Sri Hari. Now I am saved and have achieved my natural state. You helped me receive the supreme position in my life alone. Now I can experience the soul as separate from my body. Accepting Parikshit's worship, Sukadev made his departure. Parikshit himself achieved the status of the sage and concentrated his soul in Supreme Spirit. Thus, before Tashak could bite him, he was merged in Brahma. Tashak stung his physical body only, which was burnt by the effect of the sting. When Janmejaya, the son of Parikshit, learned that a snake had stung his father, he organized Sarpastra. During the Satra, and invoked by the hymns of Brahmins, snakes drew from far and near and got burnt in the fire. Frightened, Tashak approached Indra for refuge. Indra promised to help him. There on earth, Janmejaya asked the Brahmin, why has Tashak, the killer of my father, not arrived yet? Through reconciliation, Brahmin saw that Tashak was clinging to Indra's throne. The Brahmin invoked Tashak along with Indra. Indra's throne began to move earthward. But then Brihaspati, the teacher of the gods, intervened and stopped the yajna. Branches of Vedas and divisions. Suta described about the Samhitas and divisions of Vedas to the sages like Shanak. Vyasa divided Vedas into 4 parts and created 4 Samhitas, Rig, Yajur, Sama and Atharva, and taught Rig Samhita to Pile, Nigad Samhita to Vaishapanya, Chandog Samhita to Gemini, and taught Atharva Angiras Samhita to Sumantu. All these 4 sages are the disciples of Vedavyasa. Penance of Markandeya and sighting of Maya. Suta narrated the tale of Mrikandu's son Markandeya. Taking shelter at Mahakal, Markandeya had turned away even Kal, and by penance had a sight of Lord Sri Narayana. He prayed God to show his Maya. Thus Markandeya saw the scene of Pralaya. All the creatures were drowning in the deluge. On the leaf of banyan, then he saw Balamukund. Markandeya entered Lord's heart and saw endless cosmos there. Then by God's instinct, Markandeya returned to his hermitage. Thus Markandeya had the knowledge of Lord's metaphysical state. In the last chapters, a brief content of Bhagavat and glory of Lord's devotion have been discussed. Sutta says, O great sages, I have described what you have asked on the occasion of this pious assemblage. That voice is useless which cannot recite Lord's name and cannot praise his virtues. All the sins and omens are destroyed by constant recitation of Lord's name. One then receives devotion for Lord with pure heart and begins to experience and feel God's tangible form. Though all the other Puranas contain description of Lord appearance, but in Srimad Bhagavat Mahapurana there is a profuse description of Sri Hari in every chapter. Srimad Bhagavat has a confluence of knowledge, asceticism and devotion. One receives devotion for Lord and salvation eventually merely by reciting, listening and reflecting over it.